In this video, we are going to look at public variables as well as custom events and functions. This is a very important concept when it comes to coding in Unreal. The main reason we're going to look at these is so that we can affect an actor from a different actor. Let's just see this concept in action real quick. So I have my BP test here. All I have done is I have made a variable called myNumber. I've set it to type integer, and I've made sure this little I icon is checked. If this I icon is closed, it means this variable is private, and the only person that knows about this variable is this BP test. Nobody else will know that we have this variable called myNumber. If I say it's public, now I'm giving everyone permission to see this variable, to change it, so everyone, any other blueprint, can also know that we have this variable called myNumber, and they can see what it is. So just to show that I have myNumber, it is set to 5. Let's see about the let's see this myNumber variable by using our level blueprint. So I just have that open. I have dragged a test BP into the level, and I'm going to drag it into the level blueprint to get a reference here. Now, just like any other variable, I can pull this out and I can say set myNumber, and you can see under variables default it has set myNumber. Remember, I have set myNumber to start at 5, but here I can change it, so I'm going to change it from 5 to 3, and then I'm going to print string, and I'm going to get myNumber. Now we could also just use this output value. It is the same as just getting it. I'm just using this to illustrate the concept more clearly. I've got my number, and I'm going to print it. My number starts at 5. Our level blueprint, so not BP test, this has no code in it. Our level blueprint's the one setting this number, and we're going to print it out, and we should see 3. When I do it, it shows us 3. So great, that works. So this shows us that we can now affect other blueprints from other blueprints. We have used the level blueprint to affect a variable inside my BP test. So knowing that, now let's look at 2 other important concepts in this: custom events and functions. These are kind of different, kind of hand in hand. Let's just look at them both. So event begin play, we have event tick, for example. We saw actor begin overlap when we made our actors. These are all built-in Unreal events. These are all events that are associated with the actor, but we can make our own events. So I'm going to make my own custom event. I'm going to type custom event, or just custom, and it says add event. There's add custom event. Let's add one. It asks us to give it a name. We should always name our events correctly so that we, later on when we want to use these events, the names come easily to us. I'm going to call this custom print. And I can do whatever I want from this event. So because print strings are great for learning, I'm just going to print string here, and we're going to print hello this time. And this event doesn't actually get called anywhere unless we manually want to call it ourselves. So in event begin play, I'm just going to call custom print. I'm going to compile it, go back to our game. When I run this, you can see it says hello. So event begin play has ran our custom print function. Our custom print runs, and that just prints out hello. So we can make custom events like this to do whatever we want, and then later in our code, we can call these events. The same is true from other blueprints as well. So if we go back to our level blueprint, you can see under BP test we have this, in our level blueprint we have this BP test object that we had. Just like I did set myNumber, I can call this custom function. I can call custom print. And you can see it has an input and output, and we can just run it through here. So let me save that. Let me make sure in BP test to delete this from begin play. So now the custom event is here, but we're not calling it anywhere in this code. Instead, in the level blueprints begin play, we are going to call it. And when I run this, you can see it says hello. So we've made custom functionality, but we're not using it in here. Instead, we're using it somewhere else. In the same vein, we could also hit this plus button under functions, which gives us a new function. And I'm just going to call this custom print func. And you could actually see when I do custom print, it says name is already in use. This is because in some sense of the way, events and functions are very closely related. They have a small difference, but they're very closely related. So I'm just going to call this custom print func. Same thing. Instead of being in our normal event graph, which I can always switch to up here, if I double click this, it opens up its own little event graph. So functions have their own space for us to do things. Helps us very much keep things organized, because this main event graph can get full very quickly and kind of messy. So having functions kind of puts that functionality all into a little bubble that we can edit if we need to, but it keeps our main event graph clean. And I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to print string. Instead of hello, I'm just going to call it custom function print. Compile it. And this, the exact same thing in our level blueprint. Instead of calling custom print, I can call custom print function. We can run it. And there you go. It says custom print function. So the last thing I want to show you about functions is inputs and outputs. We've been looking at inputs and outputs this whole time when we look at blueprints. So for example, if I pull out the set number node, it has an input that is the new number that we're going to set. It has an output, so once the number has been set, the output is just a reference to this new number, so we can use it in further calculations or setting things if we wanted to. As an input execution and output execution. When we call any function, that input and output execution, these triangles are automatically given to us. However, in our custom functions, we can also have our own inputs and our own outputs. So this print string has its own input in string. It doesn't have any outputs, but this set function has an input and an output. All graphs or all nodes in Unreal will have something like this. We can make our own as well. So I'm going to make a custom input first. I'm just going to click on custom print func, and in the details, we can see there is a drop down for inputs. I'm going to add a new input, which you can see now is reflected here. It's showing me a little node or a data pin. I'm going to call this string, or I'll call it print string. I'm going to change its type to string. And I'm just going to plug this string into this string. So whatever our input is, we're just going to print that. If I was to go back to my level blueprint, this looks very similar to a print string now. We have this print string, which in the print string is called inString. If I was just to make a print string here so we could see. You can see just like the print string input, we have our own input now. We could type something in here. So I'm going to type this is a custom string input. Compile it. Now when we run it, you can see this is a custom string input. So we are deciding what to print using our input. And so similarly like that, we could add as many inputs as we would like to this. We can change its type to be anything, and we can use that input somewhere else. This is very useful when we want to run some code where we don't exactly know what we need yet in terms of the variables. It might be, for example, respawning the player. We don't know which respawn point to use. What is the position of that respawn point? So when we call the respawn function, we can check it. We can have an input where someone else, some other piece of code could tell us this is where to respawn the player. So inputs help make our functions more dynamic. Again, we see it all over the place. Print string has an input. Setting a function has an input. When we set our actors, add movement input, there's a bunch of inputs here. One for world direction, one for scale value, for force, and the target. And all of these are used internally inside this code to actually make our player move. Those are all inputs. Next, let's just look at outputs. You can see here I have an output, just like we had inputs. I can hit the plus to add it. This will add a new node here called a return node. And I'm just also going to keep this as a string, and I'm going to call it output string. All I'm going to do is take the input string and set it to the output string. If I was to go back to the level blueprint, now you can see our custom print function not only has an input, it also has an output. This is similar to that set function. When we're setting a variable, it has an input for the variable and an output for the new variable. Kind of similar like that. So this is very useful again. If we got some stuff in here, did a bunch of calculations on it, and we could pass it out. So we could have this function just do some calculations and give us a new value. So very useful ones, input, output. We're going to see inputs being used when we do our respawn function. Outputs are useful, but generally their use is a little more limited when we're doing simple gameplay scripting. But as you start developing systems, these outputs will become very important to know. Thank you for watching.